Containers have become the go-to way for developers to design applications and package them in the form of images so that they can deploy in a container runtime which they can test in different stages of the environment. With Kubernetes coming into picture, the orchestration of containers has become much simpler compared to how it was before when there was only Docker. I had been trying my hands on with Kubernetes inside Google Cloud Platform, and I posted a question yesterday asking if you want any videos on Kubernetes. I had a tremendous response with 95% of the people saying yes. So we are starting off with the Kubernetes primers. So as a part of this particular video, we will be looking at the Kubernetes architecture. How is the Kubernetes architecture inside a cluster look like? And in the future videos, we will be seeing how you can use the Kubernetes cluster inside the Google Cloud Platform and how we can leverage the free tiers inside the Google Cloud Platform to create and deploy applications inside GCP. Let's get started.
Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss any update from Tech Primers.
If you're not sure what is Kubernetes, do check out my video on what is Kubernetes. I'll give the link for that in the top right corner. Meanwhile, I'll just give a brief of what is Kubernetes. Kubernetes is an open source container management tool which is used to automate the container deployment. It can also scale up and scale down and also load balance your containers inside the ecosystem. So we are going to look at the typical Kubernetes cluster and what are the different components inside the cluster, and we'll see why do they need these components inside the cluster in order to understand how we can deploy applications inside Kubernetes. So all the blue boxes in the architecture diagram are going to be Linux servers. These are typical Linux hardwares which are similar to the on-premise hardware which we have. Like any other master-slave architecture, Kubernetes also has masters and slave nodes. So these are typically called Kubernetes masters, and the slave nodes are called as Kubernetes nodes or minions. They used to be called as minions. Now they are called as worker nodes or Kubernetes nodes, or in fact just node. So inside master, we have something called an API server. So any interaction with the Kubernetes cluster happens only with the API server. So API servers is rich with REST APIs, and you can interact with the components inside the cluster using the API server. So there is a CLI as well, which Kubernetes provides, the kubectl. You can use that to interact with the API server, and Kubernetes takes care of controlling the whole ecosystem using this particular API server. So the next component is the scheduler. The scheduler schedules tasks to the worker nodes. It also has other information about scheduling tasks which it needs in order to create different slave nodes so that it can use that for assessing the quality of the service requirements. So the next component is the etcd. So etcd is a key value store which is completely distributed because Kubernetes is a distributed platform. So Kubernetes uses etcd as a key value store, and it is present either inside the master or it can be taken outside the master. So you can have a standalone instance configured or you can have it inside master, and this is the storage space for the Kubernetes cluster. So all the information about the metadatas, the configurations, the secrets, the subnets, all this configuration information is all persisted inside the etcd. Since Kubernetes is distributed, they wanted to use a distributed key value store, and etcd is written in Go, and Kubernetes uses it for storing metadata information about all the cluster nodes. Finally, we have the controller manager. So controller manager is like a daemon process which is going to reconcile all the health of the worker nodes. So Kubernetes needs a process in order to identify if all the nodes are up and running, and if there is any problem, this controller node goes and restarts these worker nodes or the slave nodes with the corresponding configuration retrieved from the etcd. So these are the different components which are present inside the master. Inside the nodes, the first component is the kube proxy. So kube proxy is the component which is going to have a network proxy layer across the node. So if you want to interact with processes running inside a node, you need to talk with the kube proxy, and kube proxy allows you to talk with the containers which are running inside these nodes, right? So this is like an abstraction layer or the networking layer which acts as a load balancer for talking with the processes inside the worker nodes. So the next one is the Docker runtime. So Kubernetes uses either the Docker or the Rocket container. So you need a Docker or a Rocket container runtime, basically a container runtime, in order to host different containers inside a node. So every node has a kube proxy and a Docker runtime. Along with that, it has something called as kubelet. So kubelet is another daemon process which will be interacting with the master node, and all the tasks are retrieved via the kubelet, and kubelet goes inside the node and executes it. And in order to get the specification of the configuration for the slave node, kubelet goes to the API server and retrieves the specification instruction and then creates these container runtimes inside the node. So when we are deploying applications into a Kubernetes cluster, we will not worry about the master because master is set up by default. However, the slave nodes are the one which will be created by the master for every process which we deploy. So we need to understand how a slave node is designed. So in order to do that, let's look at the slave node, and let's look at the different components inside these slave nodes and what are they useful for. The first one obviously was the kube proxy. The kube proxy is the networking proxy which we saw earlier as well. The next component is the Docker runtime, and again the kubelet. So kubelet is going to be a daemon process which will be interacting with the master and retrieving all the tasks, and then the kubelet will do API calls to API server in order to retrieve information about the container runtimes. So over this, there is a concept of pods. So every deployment in the Kubernetes cluster runs in a pod, and pod consists of different components. One is the IP address. Every pod is assigned a unique IP address, and it also shares the single volume. This is the Linux volume which different processes which are running inside the pod will be using. And over this, the runtime would be Docker instances or the containers. So in a single pod, you can have multiple Docker containers. So pods can have multiple containers or a single container, and they share the same IP address and the volume. So if let's say I have three microservices to be deployed, I can deploy them in different containers inside the same pod. So that way I will have my whole deployment controlled inside the same pod. And if there is a problem, and I can destroy the whole pod and then respawn it in a different node. Also, a node can have multiple pods. So there is no restriction on the number of pods inside a node. So there could be multiple pods, and inside a pod there could be multiple containers. This is how a typical slave node looks like. So when we are deploying applications, the deployed application will be running inside a Docker container, and these are the different platform components which will be running along with the containers. Just to summarize what we saw, so Kubernetes is the orchestration platform created by Google, and it is now part of the Cloud Native Foundation, and it is the go-to way for deploying and orchestrating Docker containers. And this is the typical architecture. It follows the master and slave architecture, where the master has the API server for getting REST API connections or command line queries from the user. There is a scheduler which schedules tasks in order to create slave nodes or execute tasks inside the slave nodes. etcd is the distributed key value store which Kubernetes uses for storing the metadata information and the information about these slaves in order to maintain the state of these slaves. Controller manager does the reconciliation of the states, and it checks whether the slaves are in a healthy state, and if there is discrepancy, it instructs the scheduler in order to deploy new instances and destroy the existing ones. The slave nodes or the worker nodes consist of pods, and a pod can have multiple Docker containers, and a node can have multiple pods. Every container inside a pod shares the same volume and the IP address, and inside a node, there is a kube proxy which will allow incoming traffic into the containers, and it routes and subnets all these requests to the containers. And there is a Docker runtime present in order to control and provide a runtime for the containers inside a pod. And kubelets are the daemon processes which gets information from the master in order to execute tasks inside a node. I hope you guys got a basic understanding of how a Kubernetes cluster looks like. In the next video, we will understand what is deployment and service inside a Kubernetes cluster, because it's not that simple to deploy an application and then access it with the master slave architecture. So you need to deploy something called as service in order to access your deployment. So we will look at that in the next video. As always, if you like the video, go ahead and like it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to it. Meet you again in the next video. Thank you very much.